So Brian, when you were younger and the subject of money came up, when it was discussed and advice was given on how to handle it and so on, who was more influential, your mom or your dad, and why?
You know what? It actually wasn't either of them. It was my grandmother.
Oh, okay.
And she was an avid watcher of the stock market. She saved money very well and was always there to provide advice. So I actually always would turn to her when it came to financial decisions or questions I had about what's going on. And when I needed to borrow money for my first car, it was her who I went to.
Ah, that's interesting. I'm going to have to reframe that question from now on and include grandparents and uncles and aunts. And so that's interesting. What kind of advice do you remember her giving you, and did it stick with you?
Well, I think it did. It's called something different now, but she would say, don't overspend. Maybe don't be over leveraged. And I think that is something that anyone can take away. Not to get ahead of yourself on your spending, but not to overlever yourself.
Now, again, when you were younger and you finally had a bit of money to spend on something, what was your first, most exciting, most memorable purchase?
It was the Jeep YJ.
Oh, okay.
I bought that in second year university and thought it was the coolest thing, with the soft top. And just most recently, I got rid of my not sports car, but sedan, and went back and bought a Jeep.
So you had your eye on that for a long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did it feel when you finally drove away?
It was great. It was great.
All right. Very good. All right. So what's the best investment you've ever made?
I think the best investment I've ever made is in people. And when I started my first business prior to getting into trading, I had a great group of talented friends and workers that helped me build a business. And when I came to the capital markets, I remember being part of teams that had invested in their people. And when I started to become a manager and run a number of the desks at RBC and at National, I always wanted to make that investment in the people because when you make that investment, it's going to come. The returns come back to you.
What's the worst investment you ever made? Was it a certain trade where you thought, oh, this is a surefire winner, and it just went the wrong way?
Oh, I've had tons of those, but probably there's been a lot of those. The worst one I would say is that I've gotten involved in a lot of private investments, and they all sound like great ideas, inventions. A friend who has a great idea, and they say, "Don't worry, the company's gonna go public in a couple of years, or you'll get your money back, or my company's gonna get taken out." And a couple of years turns into 5 years, that turns into 10 years, that turns into 20. And I would say the vast majority of my really bad investments are in private companies that you can't get your money out of.
So lesson learned on that then?
I don't do it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
And lastly, what advice would you give to your younger self when it comes to finances, and even just a young person in general, or your kids?
First, but I go back to the privates, I would say limit the amount of exposure to having money locked up in something that you don't have control in. Because you can, when you have control of your money, you're able to make decisions not just for yourself but your family. When your money's locked up with someone else, you're not in the box.